Good morning! I just finished the first week of developmental editing for my debut novel, How to Be Alone, which I plan to finish writing this summer. What you're watching right now is a vlog that I plan to do at the end of every week, where I talk about the things that I did, what went well, what went wrong, so that if you're on your own journey, you can follow along and realize that you are absolutely not the most lost and confused person trying to write a story, or maybe you just want to join me for the ride. Either way, make sure that you subscribe because I will be uploading a video at the end of every week where I talk about my journey. So let's begin with what I did. So for the first 3 days of last week, Monday through Wednesday, I read the first draft of my novel, which I finished a few months ago. I read I read through just once, and I took notes, big picture notes. So plot inconsistencies, things I wanted to add and remove from the plot, character inconsistencies, and pacing. All these things that I noticed. So I finished that on Wednesday. It took me 3 days to reread and take notes. On Thursday I took those notes and I started editing by category. So the first category that I decided to tackle with developmental editing was plot inconsistencies. And then we'll talk about that in a second. But that took a while. That took all of Thursday, and then on Friday I started working on the next category, which was character inconsistencies. And we'll talk about that more later, but I wanted to go over 2 things that I think that I did well and 2 things that I think that I should work on so that you have a better idea for when you start your first week of developmental editing. And hopefully you'll do a little better than I did. So 2 things I think I did well was being consistent. Every day of the week, every day of the week that I could. It wasn't open on Friday, but Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I went to my local public library and I sat down. I put headphones on. I listened to Ariana Grande, and I read, and I took notes, and I edited every single day for at least a few hours. I wasn't like a full work week. I didn't spend 8 hours doing it every day. I could, and I think that I'll try to get closer to doing that for the next few weeks. But this is my first week trying. There's no reason to put huge expectations on myself to be meeting some kind of an 8-hour work week or 8 hour per day. That's just not realistic because I'm not experienced with this. So doing it every day, and then more importantly, sticking to it when it gets really difficult. I have been writing pretty much my entire life, but I pretty much have never edited anything, so I knew that this was going to be a very difficult transition for me to make, from writing, which is super easy, to editing, which I've never done before in my entire life. And so there were a lot of times where I just was, something hit me, maybe the realization of how much work this was actually going to be, like if I was doing too much, doing too little, if I was really going in the right direction, and I'd sit there like this, and I'm completely overwhelmed and I have no idea if I'm going in the right direction, if it's even worth continuing. In those times, it's important that you just keep going. It's really easy to get lost when you get stuck, to stay there. But what you need to do, you need to work through it, and just trust that you're doing it right. You'll figure out eventually. You'll figure out soon enough if you're not taking good enough notes. Editing is not a linear process. If you take bad notes your first way around, you're going to use those notes and you're going to edit your story, and then you're going to go back and reread it again and take notes again just to make sure that all the notes that you took the first time were comprehensive and made your story better. And you're going to realize that they weren't, and that they didn't do that. You're going to have time to do it right. So don't worry about not doing it right enough your first go. The other thing that I think I did well was just doing it. I didn't really get a chance because I just got out of college. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to sit down every day for a few hours and edit. There were going to be a lot of gaps in it, and eventually those gap days were going to turn into gap weeks, into gap months, and that just wasn't going to work. Especially once final week came around, that was going to be a whole week where I wasn't able to work on it. I decided to wait until after I got out of college to start editing. I'm super used to the whole process of writing, so that was really easy. It's really easy to get me to sit down and start writing, but editing, I mean, it's scary. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea how to even approach it. I watched so many videos on just where to begin, and it still didn't feel like I had any idea where I was going to go. Because some things just... first of all, if you were watching a lot of videos on how to begin editing, not everything that they say is going to be applicable to you. Writing is a very personal experience, and what works for you is very personal. You should take the things that make sense to you, the things that sound familiar, but you don't have to do it exactly as the people in the video tell you need to. The second thing that I feel like I did well is just doing it. Just sitting down and doing it. This is the first week, and always when you start something, it's really easy to do it, because you're super motivated, you just got super inspired to sit down and try, because you have all these big ideas, and you don't yet fully comprehend just how difficult it's going to be, and so it's really easy for the first week. So I'm not surprised at all that my first week wasn't that difficult motivation-wise. At least for me, sometimes, or often, it's really easy for me to get super dreamy and have lofty goals for a new project that I want to start. And then I go to actually sit down and like start writing the book or start writing whatever, and I'm just like, wait, this is gonna be so much work. And the problem isn't that I don't have time or that I'm unable to work for the next few months. Trust me, I am unemployed. I have so much time. That's not the problem. It's just that I get so overwhelmed and I get so caught up in just how massive of a project this is gonna be. If you've already finished your first draft, then you already know that the best way to eat an elephant is one bite at a time. And that, actually, you might be surprised, doesn't just apply to eating elephants, it also applies to eating your novel. Editing is very daunting. It's like the other 2/3 of writing your story, or even more depending on the kind of author that you are. And so it's really easy to get caught up and just drown in that feeling of, this is going to be so much work, and how is this ever going to be done? You just gotta start. And I just started, so this is my first week, and this is just the first of around maybe 20 of these that I'm gonna make over the course of the summer. That time is just gonna fly by. If you finish your first draft, then you know exactly this feeling. It's going to take months, and those months of your life are going to happen no matter what. So you might as well spend it working on something that you were really passionate about. Those are two things that I think I did really well. So next up, I want to do two things that I learned. So the first thing, editing is very time consuming. This is not a surprise to anybody. Everybody's going to tell you it's time consuming, but this isn't something that's really easy to conceptualize until you're actually in it. Just like how writing a novel, it taking a long time isn't easy to conceptualize until you've written your first draft, and it took you like months to make, sometimes years. For me, this draft took me months, but that's because I've been writing for years of my life already, so editing will seem like it'll take a long time. You'll be like, okay, yeah, it's gonna take a while, I'm gonna be editing for a long time, and then you sit down and you start to see everything that you need to do, everything that needs editing, everything that needs to change, and then you realize how much you weren't aware of already. And so then you're like, okay, how much wasn't I aware of? How much do I not know about now? The amount of time that it's going to take and the amount of effort that you're going to go. The beast is like this big. It's huge. It's a big burger, right? It's like 6 patties. It's got a bun in the middle for some reason, right? It's huge, and that's going to take a while. And then you sit down and you start biting, and there's actually 14 patties, and suddenly it's this big. And you didn't even realize, somehow you missed it, and you're like, okay, wait, so what happens when I take another bite? And I realized that it's huge. It's even bigger than I thought. Like, this is how big it is right now, and that's huge. So then, what if I find out later that it's this big, right? That doesn't really make sense because burgers don't do that, but hopefully you get my point. It is going to be very surprising how much time and effort it's going to take to edit your story. And then the second thing, this is something that I said I was going to come back to, is that editing is very distracting. When I took those notes, I went in and I knew the process, right? I'd heard it 100 times, 1,000, whatever. I know what the process is. You break your notes down into different things, and then you just edit that. You just edit plot inconsistencies, character inconsistencies, pacing. You do a full sweep of just focusing on that, because that is going to make it tremendously easier. I knew that that's what I was supposed to do, and so I was able to catch myself pretty early on when I started doing the complete opposite, which was I started out going in just with plot inconsistencies, and then I would start getting sucked into things that were around. So like I took the note that it was like in chapter 4 this happens, but it's never brought up again, or like it's actually different in a later chapter. So I would go to chapter 4 and I would go to that part that I mentioned, and then the paragraph before it had dialogue that was really weird, and I was like, oh, okay, I gotta change that, because that actually really sucks, and I don't want that to be in my book. And then, oh wait, actually, why did I start this paragraph with that sentence? That didn't make any sense, so let me move that over here. And then, before you know it, you just spent an hour on one note of, like, 12 that you made. It's so easy to get lost in the line-by-line edit, because it's so insidious in the way that it seems so easy. Like, oh, it'll just take a second. I'll just hop in and I'll just change this word. I'll rewrite this sentence, and then you just suddenly spent an hour working on one note of 12 of just one of like 5 categories. No matter how prepared you are for it, you're going to get sucked into something that you think is going to be super easy to fix, and then you're going to keep doing that. You're going to keep doing that, and oh no, the whole bag of potato chips is gone. Right? Hold on, I could expand that metaphor. It's like sitting down with a bag of potato chips, and you're like, oh, it's just one chip. Oh, well, that's just another chip. And then the whole bag's gone. You just ate an entire family-sized bag of chips, and you didn't even have French onion dip. It's very important that you be mindful of that, and so that you can catch yourself when you eventually do it. Because I have no doubts in my mind that you're going to end up hitting that block. So that's everything that I've written down for this week. Thank you for watching, and I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite part of the book writing process is. For me, it's the characters. I love making interesting characters that I care a lot about, that are very complex and human. I just love it. It's so fun. It's really validating to write a character that you could talk about for hours, and people love hearing about it. People love listening to you talk about them. That is definitely my favorite part of the book writing process. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in a week.